Karen claims my money is fake. She was fired after I proved I owned the bank. The check bounced, she said. Slammed it on the table in front of 40 neighbors like it was a smoking gun. Fake money, Karen Vance announced, loud enough for the whole clubhouse to hear. Cooper Hale is a fraud. I didn't move. I just watched her smile, the same smile she wore every time she humiliated someone. 3 months earlier, none of this would have happened. 3 months earlier, I hadn't found the ledger. My name is Cooper Hale. I moved to Maple Ridge Estates for peace and quiet. I got neither. The neighborhood looked perfect on paper: manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, a community pool nobody used in October. Karen Vance ran the HOA board like a queen running a small, terrified kingdom of 40 houses. Everyone called her Karen behind her back before they even knew her first name really was Karen. I bought the house at 214 Birchwood Lane in April. Quiet street. Big oak tree. Bad decision, apparently. Karen introduced herself the day I moved in, clipboard in hand, HOA handbook tucked under her arm. Welcome, she said, but your grass is already a half-inch over regulation. You have 3 days. I laughed. She didn't. That should have told me everything I needed to know about her. At first it was small things. A note about my trash cans. A warning about my porch light. Then it was my flagpole, apparently 2 inches taller than code allowed. She measured it herself. I paid every fine. I mowed on schedule. I thought if I just complied, she'd leave me alone. She didn't. Karen wasn't looking for compliance. She was looking for someone to make an example of. My neighbor Denise warned me early. She picked someone every year, Denise said. This year, it's you. I didn't believe her. Not yet. I still thought reasonable people responded to reasonable behavior. I was wrong. By June, Karen had fined me 4 times. 2 were legitimate. 2 were invented on the spot. I started keeping a folder. Every notice, every email, every timestamp. Just in case. Just to be safe. The real trouble started with the mailbox paint. Karen claimed it was off-white, not eggshell. A $200 fine. I showed her the paint can. Same store, same shelf as 3 other houses. She fined only me. Rules are rules, she said, smiling that smile again. I don't make exceptions, Mr. Hale. Except she did. Constantly. For her friends on Maple Court. For the board's treasurer's overgrown hedges. I asked, politely, why the enforcement felt selective. Karen's face changed. Just for a second. Cold. Are you accusing me of something? She asked, voice sharp enough to cut the air in the room. I said no. I said I was just asking a question. She wrote me up for hostile conduct. That night I read the HOA bylaws front to back. 51 pages. I found things I didn't expect. Karen had amended 3 rules in the last year without a proper board vote. All benefited her personally. I photographed the amendment pages. I didn't know yet what I'd do with them. But I kept them. The next HOA meeting, I asked about the amendments. Politely. Karen's gavel came down before I finished. Out of order, she snapped. 20 neighbors stared at their shoes. Nobody backed me. Not yet, anyway. Denise found me in the parking lot after. She'll come after you harder now, she whispered. Be ready. I asked her what ready meant. Denise just shook her head. Document everything. That's the only thing that works. So I did. I bought a small recorder. Legal in my state for one-party consent. I was careful. I started attending every meeting. Every walk-through inspection. I smiled the way she smiled. Calm. Watching. Waiting. Karen escalated. A fine for a garden gnome. A fine for a wind chime exceeding decibel limits. Then she fined me for my daughter's chalk drawings on the driveway. That's when something in me shifted. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger burns out. What I felt now was colder, quieter, and far more patient. I hired a lawyer named Priya Anand. Not to sue yet. Just to understand exactly what Karen could and couldn't do. Priya read my folder and went very quiet. This isn't just petty, she said. Some of this is illegal. Karen had been diverting HOA reserve funds into an account only she controlled. Priya found it in the filings. How much? I asked. Priya looked up. Over 4 years. Maybe $60,000. Maybe more. I sat with that number for a long time. $60,000 from lawn fines and pool dues. I asked Priya what we needed to prove it. She said one thing: access to the actual bank records. That's when the first real twist landed, quiet, almost invisible. I already had that access. I just hadn't told anyone. See, most of my neighbors didn't know what I did before I retired to Maple Ridge at 41. I didn't retire. I sold my share of a fintech startup and became the majority owner of a regional bank. Meridian Trust Bank. 14 branches. One of them, the one that held every HOA account in this county. Karen worked there too, not as an executive. As a branch operations manager. My branch. My bank. She had no idea. To her I was just Cooper from Birchwood, the guy with the crooked flagpole. I hadn't mentioned it. Partly humility, partly a quiet suspicion that this exact moment might someday come. Now it had. And Karen Vance was about to learn that fake money was a phrase she'd regret forever. I told Priya to hold everything. Don't file yet. Don't tip our hand. I wanted more than a lawsuit. I wanted the truth to come out in front of everyone who had ever watched her humiliate a neighbor. Karen, meanwhile, had no idea her biggest mistake was still ahead of her. She thought she'd already won. She started a new campaign, an HOA newsletter dedicating an entire page to my pattern of violations. She printed my address. My photo, taken without permission. The headline read, "Know your problem, neighbor." Half the street believed her. That's the part that hurt more than the fines ever did. I stood in my kitchen holding that newsletter and I made a decision. This was no longer about me. It was about every quiet family on this street who'd paid an unfair fine and said nothing at all. Denise told me she'd been fined for a birdbath Karen called an unauthorized water feature. $200. Mr. Okafor, 3 houses down, had been fined for a wheelchair ramp Karen called a structural violation. A wheelchair ramp. For his mother. Karen had smiled at him too, the same smile, the same clipboard. I started collecting their stories. Quietly. Coffee at my kitchen table. No recorders this time. Just listening. By August I had 11 households with documented, unfair enforcement. 11 families afraid to speak up alone. Alone, none of us could win. Together, we might. That was the whole plan, forming in real time. I called a private meeting at my house. No board members. No Karen. Just neighbors and printed folders. Denise came. Mr. Okafor came. 7 others came. Priya sat quietly at the end of my table, taking notes. She's been stealing from the reserve fund, I told them. The room went completely, utterly silent. Nobody spoke for almost a full minute. Then Denise asked the only question that mattered. Can we prove it? I looked at Priya. Priya looked at me. We're getting there, she said. We need one more thing. We needed someone inside the bank to confirm the account activity without triggering Karen's suspicion. That someone was me. The next morning I walked into my own bank as a customer, not an owner. Nobody there recognized my face. I'd kept a deliberately low profile at Meridian since acquiring it. Most branch staff had never met me. I asked a teller, casually, about a business account tied to Maple Ridge Estates HOA. She flagged it immediately. That account has some unusual transfer patterns, she admitted, before catching herself. I probably shouldn't say more. I didn't push. I didn't need to. I already had what I needed to make the next move. That night I called the bank's internal compliance director, using my real title for the first time in months. I need a discreet audit, I said. Account under Maple Ridge Estates HOA. Full transaction history, 5 years. There was a pause on the line. Yes, Mr. Hale. Right away, sir. 2 words I hadn't heard in months. The audit came back 4 days later. What it showed was worse than even Priya had predicted. Karen hadn't just diverted reserve funds. She'd forged 2 board signatures to authorize the transfers herself. Forgery. Not just petty theft, outright criminal fraud, using her position at both the HOA and the bank. I stared at the report for a long time. Then I did something Karen never expected. I waited. I let her keep going. Let her write another newsletter. Let her issue another unfair fine. Let her think she'd won. Because the longer she stayed confident, the bigger her mistake would be when it finally came out. That patience almost cost me. Karen escalated faster than I predicted and she aimed straight at my family. She filed a formal complaint accusing me of harassment for simply attending too many HOA meetings. Her board, voted to fine me $500 and restrict my meeting attendance for disruptive behavior. I nearly lost my temper for the first time. Priya put a hand on my arm. Not yet, she said. Let her build the stage herself, Priya said. Then we knocked the whole thing down in front of everyone. So I paid the $500 fine without a word of protest. Karen looked almost disappointed that I didn't fight back. She mistook my silence for surrender. That was, without question, the single biggest mistake of her entire life. The annual HOA meeting was 6 weeks away. Every homeowner required to attend, board elections on the agenda. I quietly told Priya to prepare full documentation, time to release the moment Karen expected to be re-elected unopposed. 2 weeks before the meeting, Karen made her next move, the one about the check. The fake money. I'd paid my quarterly HOA dues by check, drawn from a personal account at, of all banks, Meridian Trust. Karen, working the front desk that week covering for a sick colleague, flagged my check as suspicious. She didn't verify it through proper channels. She simply declared, publicly, that my payment had bounced. It hadn't. She printed a notice for the community board, resident Cooper Hale's payment returned, insufficient/fraudulent funds. Repeated violation. By the time I saw it, half the neighborhood had already read it. Someone had photographed it and shared it. My own daughter came home from a friend's house asking why people online were calling her dad a fraud. That was the moment my patience finally ran out completely. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed quietly. I called Priya. We move, I said. The meeting. All of it. No more waiting. Priya didn't argue. She'd been ready for weeks. I'll have everything printed and bound by Thursday, she said. I called the 11 households from my kitchen meeting. Every one of them agreed to attend the annual meeting. Denise asked if I was scared. I told her the truth. No. I'm just finally ready. 2 nights before the meeting, Karen posted one more thing, a public apology that wasn't really an apology. Mistakes happen, she wrote, but Mr. Hale's pattern of hostility toward this board speaks for itself. She never once said the check had actually cleared. She let the accusation hang there, unresolved, poisoning my name. I printed that post. Added it to the folder. Folder was getting thick now. Almost ready to open. The morning of the meeting, I put on a plain gray suit. Nothing flashy. I wanted her comfortable, not alarmed. Priya met me in the parking lot with a leather folder and a look I'd never seen on her before. "Are you ready?" she asked. I looked at the clubhouse doors. 40 cars already in the lot. "I am." Inside, folding chairs faced a small podium where Karen stood, gavel in hand, clipboard resting beside a pitcher of water. She saw me walk in and smiled that smile. "Mr. Hale. Glad you could join us despite your restrictions." I smiled back. For the first time in 6 months, my smile matched hers exactly. Calm. Certain. Ready. The meeting opened with routine business, landscaping budgets, pool hours, a vote on holiday decoration rules. Then came the board election. Karen, running unopposed, stepped to the podium to accept her 5th term as president. "Before we vote," I said, standing, "I'd like to raise an item under new business. It's important." Karen's gavel hovered. For a second I thought she'd shut me down again. Instead, oddly, she let me continue. "Big mistake." She still thought this was about my fines. She had no idea what was actually coming. 2 weeks ago, I began, this board publicly accused me of paying HOA dues with fraudulent funds. A murmur ran through the room. Karen's smile flickered, just slightly, like a light bulb about to die. "I'd like to clear that up," I said, starting with where that check was actually drawn from. I opened the folder. Held up a single page. "This is a letter from Meridian Trust Bank. It confirms my check cleared instantly, 5 weeks ago, with 0 irregularities. The funds were never fake." Karen recovered fast. "Clerical confusion happens," she said smoothly. "I'll issue a correction in next month's newsletter." "That's generous," I said. "Especially since you're the one who processed the check. At your job. At Meridian." The room went dead silent. Nobody in that clubhouse, not one single person, knew Karen worked at my bank. Karen's face changed color. That's private employment information," she stammered. "It's not relevant here." "It's very relevant," I said, "because you used your position there to falsely flag a legitimate customer." "You don't know anything about how that bank operates," Karen snapped, regaining some of her old fire. That was the line I'd been waiting for. The exact door I needed her to open herself. "Actually," I said, "I know exactly how it operates. I'm the majority shareholder. I own Meridian Trust Bank." The silence that followed was the loudest silence I have ever experienced in my entire life. Karen laughed, a short, brittle sound. "That's absurd. You live on Birchwood. You mow your own lawn." I nodded toward the door. Priya walked in with a second folder and handed it directly to the room. Inside was a notarized letter from Meridian's board secretary, confirming my ownership stake, dated 18 months prior. Denise, sitting in the 3rd row, actually gasped out loud. Mr. Okafor put his hand over his mouth. Karen's clipboard slipped slightly in her grip. This is a stunt. This proves nothing." "It proves I own the account you falsely flagged," I said. "Now let's talk about the other accounts." Karen's face lost every trace of color. She knew, in that instant, exactly what "other accounts" meant. "I don't know what you're implying," she said, voice suddenly much smaller than it had been all night. "I'm not implying anything," I said. "I'm reading directly from a 5-year audit of the HOA reserve account." I read the first number aloud. Then the second. Then the dates that matched 2 forged board signatures. $61,400, I said. "Moved from HOA reserves into a personal account." "Yours." Someone in the back row stood up. Then another. The room that had once feared Karen now stared at her. "This is defamation," Karen said, but her voice cracked in the middle of the word. She knew it was over. "It's not defamation if it's documented," Priya said calmly. "And we have 5 years of documentation." Karen looked at the board members beside her. Every one of them slowly slid their chairs an inch away from her. I want a lawyer, Karen said suddenly, panic finally breaking through the practiced calm she'd worn for years. You'll want more than that, Priya said. Forging board signatures is a felony in this state. The HOA's own attorney, present as a formality, stood up. I need to recuse myself from this matter. Karen turned to the crowd, searching for one friendly face. She found none. Not a single one. You all voted for me, she said, voice rising. Every year. You trusted me. This is betrayal. You measured my flagpole, I said quietly. You find a wheelchair ramp. This isn't betrayal. This is accountability. Mr. Okafor stood up, cane in hand. You find my mother's ramp $200. $200. Denise stood next. You find my bird bath. I paid it because I was scared of you. I'm not anymore. One by one, homeowners stood, each with their own story, each one small on its own, enormous together. Karen tried to speak over them, gavel banging uselessly against the podium. Nobody in the room was listening anymore. A homeowner near the back called the non-emergency police line, quietly, phone held low. Just in case. Priya stepped forward. The board is legally required to suspend the president pending an embezzlement investigation. Effective immediately. A vote was called on the spot. 39-0. Karen Vance was suspended before the meeting even ended. She grabbed her clipboard and her purse, hands shaking, and walked toward the exit without another word. At the door, she turned back one last time. This isn't over, she said. Nobody in the room believed her. The next morning, I got a call from Meridian's HR director. We need to discuss an employee, she said. I already knew who. Karen Vance, I confirmed. I'd like her file reviewed for immediate termination. HR moved fast once the HOA audit and the forged signature evidence hit their compliance department that same day. Within 48 hours, Karen Vance was formally terminated from Meridian Trust Bank. Cause: fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. The bank issued no public statement, but word travels fast in a town this size. Everyone knew by Friday. Karen tried to spin it online first. A vague post about corporate politics and being targeted unfairly. Nobody bought it. Not after the meeting. Not after 39 votes cast against her in a silent room. The county district attorney's office opened a formal case the following Monday. Embezzlement, forgery, wire fraud, 3 counts. Priya represented the HOA's interests through the process, working to recover the stolen $61,000. Karen hired a defense attorney who, within 2 weeks, began negotiating a plea deal instead of a trial. The evidence was simply too complete. Bank records, forged signatures, a 5-year paper trail with her name on every line. I didn't attend every hearing. I didn't need to. I'd already gotten what actually mattered to me. What mattered was watching Mr. Okafor's face when the board voted to refund every improperly issued fine. What mattered was Denise, 3 weeks later, planting a new birdbath with a small sign that read, "Approved." The HOA held a special election. Denise ran for president. She won, unopposed, by an actual, honest, wide margin. New bylaws passed within the month, an independent review board for all fines, no single-person veto power. I quietly declined a board seat myself when it was offered. I'd done what I set out to do. A local news outlet picked up the story 2 weeks later. HOA president fined wheelchair ramp, stole reserve funds. The headline spread further than I expected. Comments poured in from people who'd survived their own HOA Karens. Karen's plea deal, finalized in late autumn, included restitution, 5 years probation and a permanent ban from HOA leadership statewide. No jail time, in the end. Priya said that was common for a first offense with full restitution paid. Part of me wanted more. A bigger punishment. But watching her lose everything she'd built was enough, eventually. Karen's husband, I later heard, filed for divorce 3 months after the scandal broke. She lost that too. She put her house on Maple Court up for sale by winter. Nobody in the neighborhood said goodbye. On her last day, I saw her loading boxes into a moving truck alone. No friends. No board members. No clipboard. She looked up once, saw me on my porch and looked away just as fast. Neither of us said anything. I didn't feel triumphant watching her leave. I felt tired. Relieved, but tired, in a way I hadn't expected. Denise brought me a casserole that night, unprompted. For the man who finally stood up to her, she said. Mr. Okafor's ramp got a fresh coat of paint that weekend, courtesy of 6 neighbors who showed up unannounced. The community newsletter, now edited by Denise, ran a different kind of headline that month: New Beginnings, Same Street. I read it on my porch with coffee, my daughter drawing chalk flowers on the driveway beside me. Unfined. Unafraid. Priya called to close out the file formally. For what it's worth, she said, that was a clean case. Clean felt like an understatement for something that had taken over half a year of my life to finish. I thought it was over. I really did. But one more twist was still waiting, quiet, in the mail. A certified letter arrived in November, from the county clerk's office. HOA embezzlement civil suit, my name listed as plaintiff. I hadn't filed it. Priya explained, the new HOA board had filed on behalf of all 40 homeowners, automatically including me. The recovered restitution, once finalized, would be split among every household that had paid an unfair fine over 5 years. Mr. Okafor got his $200 back, with interest. Denise got hers. 11 families, made whole, quietly, without fanfare. My own check, when it finally arrived, was for $400. Less than I'd spent on legal coffee meetings. I framed it anyway. Not for the money. For the reminder of exactly what stubborn documentation can accomplish. Karen resurfaced once more, briefly, applying for a compliance job at a bank 2 counties over. She was rejected. Word travels in banking circles too, it turns out, especially when the story involves forged signatures and a felony record. I never heard from her directly again. No calls, no letters, no confrontations. Just silence, the kind that feels earned. Maple Ridge estates changed after that spring. Fines dropped by 80% under the new independent review process. Neighbors started talking to each other again, actual conversations, not the clipped, fearful nods we traded under Karen's rule. Denise organized a real block party that June, the first one in 5 years nobody needed board approval for. I stood in my own driveway that evening, watching kids run through sprinklers, watching neighbors laugh without checking over their shoulders. It struck me then how much fear had quietly shaped the street and how strange it felt for it to lift. My daughter asked me once why that scary HOA lady left. I told her the truth, simplified for a 7-year-old. She thought the rules only applied to other people, I said. Eventually, the rules caught up to her too. She nodded like that made perfect sense, which, honestly, it did. Kids understand fairness better than most adults admit. I still own Meridian Trust Bank. I still live at 214 Birchwood Lane. I still mow my lawn on schedule. But I don't do it because I'm afraid of a fine anymore. I do it because it's my house, my choice. That distinction, small as it sounds, turned out to be the entire point of everything that happened this year. Priya sent one last message in December. Case fully closed. Restitution complete. You did a good thing, Cooper. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like someone who'd simply refused to stay quiet one time too many. The folder that started it all still sits in my office drawer. I never threw it away. I probably never will. Sometimes proof is the only language power understands. I learned that the hard way, on a driveway, over chalk drawings. The new board sent a small plaque that winter, thanking the residents who came forward. My name was one of 12. I hung it in the garage, next to my daughter's chalk-stained handprint from the day the fines finally stopped mattering. Winning cost me something too, though, 6 months of evenings, a strained friendship with a board member who'd sided with Karen, sleepless nights building a case I never wanted to build. Some neighbors still avoided me afterward, uncomfortable that a quiet guy on Birchwood had turned out to hold that much power. Power, it turns out, makes people nervous even when it's used to protect them. That was a strange lesson too. I stopped attending every HOA meeting after Denise took over. I trusted her. I'd earned the right to rest. On the anniversary of that annual meeting, Denise sent a short text. "Thank you for not staying quiet. Truly." I typed back 3 words. Anyone would have. Even as I wrote it, I wasn't sure I believed that myself. Most people don't have a bank in their back pocket when a bully calls their money fake. I did. I used it. Not everyone gets that kind of leverage. Most people just get told to comply, pay the fine and stay quiet. I think about Mr. Okafor's ramp sometimes and how close that whole system came to never being questioned at all. Karen Vance believed the rules protected her forever. She forgot that rules, real ones, eventually protect everyone, including her victims. My daughter still draws chalk flowers on the driveway. Nobody has fined her for it in almost a year now. I sat on my porch that final evening, folder closed for good, and finally, quietly, let myself feel something like peace. Karen lost her title, her job, her marriage and her street, all because she called one honest man's money fake.